four-time Emmy-nominated producer, Frank Pace, with retired New York City firefighter and Vietnam vet, Billy O'Connor.
My brother Frankie, how are you, pal?
How are you doing today?
I'm doing good, pal. Getting old is not for sissies, though. I got to tell you. I think if things really get better with age, me and you are slowly approaching magnificence. Because, man, I tell you, it's getting harder.
Wow, it sure is.
Is it really getting harder?
Yeah, well, wait a second. Are we
50,
talking about metaphysical things here? Are we talking about my appendages getting harder? What are we talking about? Getting harder. I tell you what, I don't waste anything that's hard anymore. Big rule I have is I never pass a bathroom, I never pass a men's room, and I never waste an erection. That's like a big rule you get when you get older.
That you brought the house to.
Well, I think that's the last thing we want to talk about.
We don't want to get into my appendages. No, we don't.
So I hear the bookies paid off on the election.
Yeah,
and that's what we go by. We just go by what the bookies do because you're a former bookie. You pick our football picks by the bookies.
Well, money has no political affiliation. You know. So I was even looking at the bookies instead of the polls when they were predicting the election, but the bookies were just as wrong as the pundits, as the political pundits. This year, usually they're on the money, but they were off terribly. Biden was 2-1 to win the election, and it was a very close election.
Yeah, you know? we talked about that last week. You know,
yeah,
the polls and the pundits don't know shit.
Yeah, and it's still playing out.
And they don't know what America thinks either. And neither do we. The only one who knows what America thinks are Americans.
Exactly.
And one at a time.
And one at a time. Exactly, one at a time. But, I mean, it's still playing out the election. But the bookies have paid off. I mean, they paid off on Biden. You know, if you bet Biden for the election, you got paid.
And nobody's going to give that money back.
No.
if the election is overturned. That's
the people that collected that money are heading for parts unknown as we speak. They're gone.
I think I told you once. When we were at Jacksonville, we had a guy running book, and his name was Artie Seltzer. And for 1 week, for 2 or 3 weeks, he was cleaning up. The fourth week, the UPI went down. So he made his own line. He got killed. The next week, he got killed. He made his own line again. So everybody was, the third week, he made his own line again, and he got killed again. And we heard that a bank had been robbed. And we heard that Artie was a big fat guy with a beard. And the description of the guy was a big fat guy with a beard. When Artie showed up at the cafeteria that night, he was still a big fat guy, but he had shaved. He didn't fool anybody because that night we got a knock at the door, and it was the FBI. And they were on to Artie, and he went to jail.
For robbing a bank. That's desperate.
For robbing a bank to pay off his debts.
And the thing that's remarkable is bookmakers rob you for a living. I mean, that's what they do. They shouldn't have to rob a bank, you know, to cover their bets.
Well, if President Trump no longer becomes president, which according to the bookies, he's no longer be president as of Inauguration Day, January 20th, I think he's going to be a major, major presence on American media.
Yeah, well, first of all, I mean, everything Trump does, whether he drinks a cup of coffee or eats a hamburger, it's news. I mean, he is a beacon for news. So that's not going to go away. He's certainly going to have a major influence on the Republican Party and in politics in general. And, of course, he likes that stage, so I don't see that going away anytime soon. You know, he relishes the spotlight.
So let's handicap the 2024 presidential election.
He'll be back. Do you think he'll be back?
I think he may be back. I don't know whether he's going to have the support that he has, but who do you think will be the candidates in 2024, and who do you think will be the Democratic candidates in 2024? Because I don't think Biden will be back.
No, I don't see Biden coming back. Frankly, without getting partisan, I'd like to see some new blood in the Democratic Party. I'm tired of.
I gave you a nonpartisan question. So.
Well, I mean, I'd like to see some new blood. I think Buttigieg is pretty cool in the Democratic and even the Republican things. Listen, the demographics of the United States has changed so immensely that it's time for guys 80 years old to move
80
aside
years old.
a bit.
It's time for
Look at the
70-year-old guys.
Yeah.
70-year-old guys. I want to move aside 60-year-old
Yeah,
guys.
let's have some young blood. I mean, and people that genuinely reflect the demographic of the country, I think,
Yeah, well, I think the Republican race will be interesting. It'll be between Donald Trump, if he runs. If not, maybe his son.
Well, how old is Trump now?
Well, he will be 78 in 24.
So that's a stretch, just like Biden now. It's a bit of a stretch.
He will be 78. If he doesn't run, it'll be interesting to see who he throws his weight behind. Whether he'll throw it behind Mike Pence, whether he'll throw it behind Ivanka, whether he'll throw it behind Nikki Haley.
He's got a lot of weight to throw.
And probably have more then.
But I think now, the idea of him rejecting the results of the election is more about Georgia. There's no Republican senator that can say, all right, Prez, it's time to call it a day. You lost the election. When it's all about Georgia, if Trump doesn't get behind those two senators in Georgia, they could definitely lose the Senate.
Well, I think that even if he does get behind him, a lot of people went to the polls and voted straight party line for Trump and the two senators that may not go to the polls without him on a ticket for the two senators this time.
But Congress, the Dems lost some seats in Congress, which would indicate that some people went to the polls and pulled a straight Republican lever without Trump at the top. That's another thing to look at. It's definitely if you don't go Trump in the South, you're going to get hurt, though. So,
yes,
they need him in the South in Georgia to win those two Senate
Well, I'll be
seats.
interested to see if the Georgia recounts, if the votes for Biden, the people who didn't vote straight party ticket, if the votes for Biden invalidate the Republican senatorial candidates for the people that didn't vote straight ticket, if they split their tickets. Because if that vote is no good, that vote is no good. You can't vote for one and not vote for another.
One thing's for certain, there's going to be a ton of money pouring into Georgia.
Boy.
It's going to be going to be a ton of national money.
And I think that's got to be curtailed also. I think it's going to be an auction.
But that's what it is, and that bothers me. I think we run auctions in this country. I don't know the exact statistic. I'm going to make one up. It's about 85% that the person who spends the most money wins the election. Mm-hmm. That's got to stop. And I'm very much against the Citizen United, that you could bring dark money into the campaign and not say where it comes from. Because now you're talking about countries, you're talking about bad actors,
I'm very much against people like Schumer and Pelosi and the Republicans and Mitch McConnell running for life.
Yeah, Grassley, whatever. Yeah, on both sides of the aisle.
They ought to be able to have term limits.
How are you going to get a Congress to vote for term limits?
Well,
that's another thing, right? That's like saying, you're going to vote against your own health. It ain't going to happen,
Yeah. So on another subject, why don't you give me a good bar story to get?
I'll tell you.
First of all, this is our Veterans Day show, so we want to get to the veterans as soon as possible. But why don't you tell me a good bar story? Sure, quick
bar story. I give you the cleverness of an alcoholic. I was because alcoholics are devious, man. Just like drug addicts, like gamblers, they're going to get their bets in. Gamblers, drug addicts are going to get their drugs. Alcoholics are going to get their drinks. I had a buddy, fireman. A real D's, do's, dems, and those guys. You know what I mean? The guy looked like easy now. This guy looked like he was right out of Central Casting. Right out of Goodfellas. And he was a fireman, and he built a bar out by Belmont Racetrack, right out Belmont, Long Island. And it was a Guinea Wise Guy joint. That's what it was.
Again, easy.
It was a wise guy joint
Okay.
of a particular ethnic persuasion.
A guinea wise guy.
And he asked me, to temp bar out there. So I tend to bar to do him a favor. And I get out there and he says to me, now here's the first thing you got to know. He says, no matter what, he says, the chefs are drunk. He said, drunk. Under no circumstances, give him anything to drink, right? I've said, okay, sure, don't worry about it. Now I'm a dipso myself, so I'm only going to be here for the weekend, So sure enough, about 7:30 at night, he comes out of the kitchen, the chef. He's got all his whites on and everything in a hat, the chef's lid. And he says to me, listen, give me a mug of red wine for the gravy. Now, for people that are not Italian, they call it red sauce. If you put meat in it, it's gravy. So they call it the gravy. He says, I need a mug of red wine. So I know what's going on, but I give him the mug of red wine because I don't care. Sure enough, like clockwork, every 15 minutes for the next
More gravy.
3 hours, he's out. Let me have another mug of red wine for the gravy. I give him another mug of the grape. It goes on for like 2 hours. Finally, the rush is over. It's like 10 o'clock at night. The restaurant's closed, and he comes out and he goes, hey, kid. He goes, the hell with it. Give me a gin and tonic for the gravy. You got to love alcoholics.
I do love alcoholics, that's for sure. That's for sure. All right, so let's get into our Veterans Day celebration.
Yeah, and I'm really interested to talk to
all three of them.
Yeah, the three guys that we have. I mean, of course, Charlie Harris, he's served during the Vietnam War in intelligence, and I'm interested to find out about what that was all about because I was anything but intelligent when I was in Nam. I was lost in a cloud of drugs. But the colonel and the retired general and the colonel, of course, that's a whole different world for me. So I'm anxious to get their impressions about a lot of things.
Great. So why don't we bring Mickey on, Mickey Charlie Harris, and we'll just keep talking until we see him on camera.
Yeah. Interesting in Nam, they have which they call R&R, rest and relaxation.
Mm-hmm.
Every they give you one 30-day period. Is it 30 days? No, 2 weeks, I think, of R&R. For the year you're over there, and of course everybody fled to Bangkok or wherever the party it was going to be. They should have called it.
Wait, let's break that.
It's okay. It's fine.
They should have called it I&I instead of R&R. Instead of rest and relaxation, they should have called it intercourse and intoxication. Because that's pretty much what it was. It was a chance to get away from the war. And Bangkok had gambled on all the nightlife and hotels and women and clubs. And, they went all in on that. So the GIs, that's what they were selling, and that's what we were buying, But here we have Mr. Harris. Is it Charlie or Mickey?
He's got to unmute the mic.
Hold on, I'll do it.
Okay.
Oh yeah, you have to do it. Hit it again, Dad. There you go.
Yeah, well, you're on now. I can hear you.
Oh, okay. Great.
How are you, Mr.
guys
Harris?
doing?
You prefer Charlie or Mickey, or how do we address you?
Well, Mick is my nickname, was given to me by my cousin. And even when I was in school, the teachers never called me Charles. They all called me Mickey.
All right, so Mickey.
So Mick is fine.
Mick from the Mick.
Mick from the Mick. As long as your last name is not Finn, we're in business. Mickey Finn.
Oh, my goodness.
So let me ask you initially, you were in intelligence in Vietnam. Is that correct?
Yeah, I worked in a tactical comm center in Vietnam. We had two comm centers. One was above ground and the other one was below. And I worked for 6 months in the one below ground with all the generals and everything.
Why don't you describe the one below ground? What do you mean by that?
Well, it was kind of much like a big bunker where when we would go to that comm center in the morning, we would go down the stairs. It was surrounded by concrete, and the officers' quarters were in the back of it where they were secure. And what we had to do to come in the morning was to set up all the equipment so we could catch all the messages and send out messages. And The tactical comm center was used, and the reason for that was if we took a hit above ground, then we would still have that one underground that was operational.
Great.
What rank were you then, Mickey? What rank were you?
I was Spec 4.
You were Spec 4.
Right.
And operating underground intelligence, you were monitoring the enemy's
We
transmissions
were monitoring
as well?
the engine. Yeah, we were. We were monitoring the enemy, the casualties, ordnance, just about everything that we would have to put together for the end of the day and send back to headquarters.
And how long were you in Vietnam?
A year.
A year. That's same amount of
Yeah,
time.
usually it's a 1-year tour unless you re-up
Right.
to ask for another tour.
I heard you guys talking about R&R. I didn't take any.
You didn't take any R&R.
No.
That's just because your son's here. You don't want to say nothing in front of your son. Come on. Tell the truth and shame the devil. How old are you, Mickey?
Right now, I'm 74.
74. So you're 2 years older than me, and you were over there in 69 or 60?
In 70, actually.
And are you allowed to tell us what base you were in, or that's still like...
Well, I came in at Long Bend.
Long Bend, okay.
Yeah, and we came into the replacement station, and from there they sent you to where you were going to be stationed in Vietnam. I was stationed at the 2nd Field Force headquarters, right down the street from MacV. And we were also there with a helipad. So there.
The base that I was on was in northern Thailand. It was on the Laotian border.
Mm-hmm.
It was called Nakhon Phanom. NKP was what all the GIs used to call it. And we had a facility there that was called the Project. That's all I knew about it. Was the project. No, honest, it was top secret. And I knew it was important because they wouldn't let me anywhere near it because I didn't have a top secret clearance because I was born in Ireland. And if you were born in another country, you couldn't get a top secret clearance. Not that I needed it. You know, you only get the clearances as you need it.
You needed it. You needed it.
But they had this project surrounded by barbed wire and fences and MPs. And I knew it was important because Goldwater had actually came to our base and examined the project. And so did LBJ. But I found out later, many years later, that they were monitoring the traffic going down the Ho Chi Minh Trail because we were right on the. We had helicopters. We had the Jolly Green Giants, which they were rescue helicopters, and we were as close to Vietnam as you could get without being in Nam. You know, we were in a neutral country, obviously in Thailand, but we were right on the Laotian border, and they monitored all the traffic, so they knew how much traffic was coming down the Ho Chi Minh Trail at all times. Were you privy to that kind of information, or is that? I can't talk about it, or
well, not really.
okay, yeah.
40 years later, you can't talk about it?
Well, no, there were certain things that we couldn't. I also had a top secret clearance.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's the reason why you're not going to talk about it for sure.
But I mean, there's still some things. Look, they can't even still talk about JFK's death. Can't be released all the information from the Warren Commission. And how many years later is that? I mean, you know, there's some things that just can't. He's not privy to say. That's why I asked him. I mean, I could talk about anything.
All you could talk about was Vietnam would be hookers.
The hookers, the food. I know you didn't experience any of that, John. Mickey, I know that. I know that. You didn't get over there.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
I understand there's an interesting story about your son and you learned in Vietnam. Why don't you tell us that story about how you learned that Derek was born?
Well, working in the comm center, also with the Red Cross. So every message that came through, we would get before anybody else would. So I was working the comm center that morning, and the message came through that I had a son that had been born.
Wow.
So in actuality, it was just a formality after I had to go to see the Red Cross because I already knew. So that's how. So that's how I found out.
You had to tell the Red Cross, and then the Red Cross had to tell you.
Exactly, and that's how it worked over there. You know how protocol works, so that's how that works for sure.
how did you feel about the draft? Were you drafted?
Yeah, I was drafted.
And
What happened was I had graduated from college in the middle of the semester.
and where'd you go to school?
And
Where'd you go to school?
I went to a small black college called Grambling State University.
I've heard it well.
Yes, it was one of the top.
My friend Charlie Joyner went to Grambling.
That's exactly right. You sure did.
Yep.
I knew Charlie Joyner too.
Did you?
Yeah.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
They were a heck of a guy.
Yeah.
He certainly was. A lot of those guys, we became good friends because I would help and play basketball with the basketball team. And so a lot of those guys would come in the gym and we'd play basketball against one another.
Great.
So,
Great.
Yeah.
So did you get drafted, Mickey?
I was drafted, in 1969, July. When I got out in mid-year, I taught school for about 6 months. And after the 6 months, job didn't come through. So Uncle Sam sent me a letter and told me he wanted me. And so I got drafted.
What was your number?
What was I, like number 130 or something like that?
Wow, you must have just made it. They must have just got to you.
Yeah, they
because
did.
I think because my number was number 4.
Wow.
Yeah, I didn't know that then, and I got called for my physicals, and I went for the physical, and he looked at my X-rays and he said, "What's the matter with your wrist?" I said it was broken. Well, he said, then you're no longer eligible for the draft because you're not capable of holding a rifle. So
Wow.
I said, thanks, I guess. But the funny story about how I broke that wrist, I broke it playing soccer for a U.S. Naval Air Base at Brunswick, Georgia. I was a college soccer player, and the guy running the naval team from Brunswick, he paid a couple of us to play for them as ringers on weekends.
You were a ringer?
Yeah, believe it or not. And I broke my wrist in goal making a save, and that's what kept me out of the Army.
Wow.
The Navy.
You know what?
the Navy
I had
kept- the
mixed
Navy kept me out
emotions.
of the Army.
I have mixed emotions about the all. I'd like to get your impression about that. What do you think about the all volunteer army? I have mixed emotions about it because I joined the Air Force in '66. Now,
But
the
you had no options.
well, my father, first of all, my father was an abusive alcoholic, right? And I figure, well, at least if I go to Vietnam, I got a chance of fighting back. With this lunatic, I got no chance. I got to get out of here. I just wanted to get the hell out of the house. I would have went to Mars to get the hell out of the house. But I mean, having said that, I joined the Air Force because I knew the Marines or the Army were going to draft me, and so I joined the Air Force in '66. But I got to tell you, when I was in boot camp, some of the guys that I was in boot camp with were studying to be lawyers, were studying to be doctors. And so do you think the all-volunteer Army lowers the quality of the guys that come in, or do you think it's a better thing?
I actually thought in the beginning that it would never work. I thought that the draft would be the best way to get the numbers that we needed. And also we could save some people from going to jail or doing something by entering the military. And that was very important to me at that time. But I talked to several guys about it, and a lot of guys who were in at that time didn't think it would work anyway. But I guess we never thought about the money that they were going to be paid, to join the volunteer army.
Yeah, I didn't think it would work either, because I thought it was going to lower the quality of the people coming in, and also the idea that it's egalitarian when you just have a draft. The last time we really had it was a rich man's war. I think one senator's son served in Vietnam.
Yeah,
one
only
senator's
one.
son.
That's
So,
exactly right.
It became a poor man's war, and I think the draft makes it more egalitarian if it's run the way it used to be run, where it was completely random.
I agree 100%. I think it would be better for the country and better for the youth that we are coming out of school today, and a lot of them have nothing to do.
I would think. I think it would make a rich senator a little bit more reluctant to vote for a war when his son is going to be one of the ones going. It'd be.
Yeah.
It's all right for him to send your son to war. Or
Yeah.
send my son to war, but he
Yeah.
has to think about sending his own son to war. He might be a little bit more reluctant. That's just my feelings. I mean.
Yeah.
I'll be interested to get the general and the colonel's opinion.
Yeah, I'm going to ask them their opinion about that too. I mean, these are career officers. You were in for 4, Charlie, Mickey.
3 years.
3 years.
And we had to sign up for the extra one because we took the computer and auto den courses that they were offering us, and we had to sign up for an extra year in order to get into those.
I got to tell you, when I was in in Laos anyway, on the Laotian border, what really amazed me here, I'm a kid from the Bronx, right? And I grew up in tenements, and we had plenty of cockroaches, like in the tenements, growing up in the Bronx. And then when I went to South Carolina, they sent me to Charleston, South Carolina, and they have these things called rice bugs. Not rice bugs. They have palmetto bugs, they call them, which are basically water bugs, huge water bugs. I mean, they're just roaches with on a larger scale. Well, when I got to Vietnam, they had what they call rice bugs, which made water bugs look like a sprinkle. I mean, they were like the kind of bugs they had over there. After 9 months of intense heat and then 3 months of nothing but rain, everything grows larger. And everything seems to be poisonous, right? Everything is poisonous.
Yes.
It was amazing to me. I was walking up to go to work one morning about 6 o'clock in the morning. And I was going up to where the computers were, to go to work. Just a regular shift. As I'm walking along the dirt path, I look down and I see this centipede. We used to call them thousand-leggers when we were kids.
Yes.
You'd turn over a rock and see this thing. Well, this thing had to be as big as a Panama cigar. I mean, It was huge, right? And I saw it. I said, whoa, look at that thing, and I got down real close to it and looked at it and started, I didn't poke with it or nothing. I just looked at it and said, that's the biggest centipede I ever saw in my life. And then I found out about a week later that they were more poisonous than crate snakes. Like if you got bit by that thing, it was game over. Like you could get bit outside a hospital and you were dead. You know what I mean?
Wow.
But they had so many things over there: the crate snakes, the cobras, the scorpions. I mean,
I'll tell you one incident I had. I was coming to the hooch one evening after work, and probably like you work 12-hour days. And I walked into the hooch, and what was in the middle of the floor but a cobra?
A cobra?
And, yeah.
In the middle.
And I looked at him. He was standing up tall, looking at me, right? So I looked at him. I said, I turned around and walked out the hooch. And came back later. One of the guys told me, say, "Y'all, man, you should have come over here. It was just a stuffed snake."
I didn't go for anybody playing games with snakes over there, phony snakes.
Dude.
I was in my hooch. The first day I was over there. And I lie down in the bunk and I look up on the ceiling. And there's about 14 lizards, flying around. Wow. So I take off my shoe and I said, well, let me put an end to this guy. And I'm about to smack one. And the hooch boy says, no. Pen. And I says, so Pern must be tied for trust this son of a bitch, right? No, Pern. It turns out Pern means friend.
Okay.
And what it is they kill the mosquitoes, they kill the flies, they kill all the other bugs. You want them things around you,
Oh, I believe that. That's for sure.
Kids from the Bronx, I didn't know.
Hey, Mickey, I understand you have a story about soap.
A dope?
Soap.
Oh, yeah.
No. Soap. S-O-A-P.
I got stories about
got stories about
Soap?
So
Did you say, wait, let me be clear now, soap or dope?
soap.
we can talk about dope later, but soap.
S-O-A-P.
So that
soap.
so it had to do with had to do with the draft.
Oh, yeah. Well, there were a lot of guys who would try many different ways to get out of going into the service. So a lot of the guys have found a way that they could take a bar soap, mix it with water, and drink it before they would go in to be examined. And it would run their blood pressure up and other little elements in their body. So if they would drink it, let's say 30 or 40 minutes before they went in for an examination, when they go in, their blood pressure is high, they look lethargic, and they will be examined. And the guy will say, "Man, your blood pressure is sky high." And just like anybody else, they would say, "Well, you're not eligible for the draft." And that's how a lot of them got out of it.
That's cool.
It was a lot of different ways they used. They would take a lot of aspirin, a lot of things that would change, their body composition and physicality. Yeah.
Wow.
I don't know if I would have drank soapy water. I definitely would have put on a pair of high heels, though. And said, "Wonderful. Show me to the troop train. Which way is the troop train?"
So we're going to close in a little bit, but
Okay.
let me ask, you're an intelligence officer. So I'm going to ask you, I'll give you a little test to measure your intelligence. Given your choice between your son, Derek, or your daughter-in-law, Yesenia, who would you pick?
Both.
Excellent answer. Derek actually thought you'd say Yesenia.
Yeah, they're both great people. Tell you.
He is indeed.
Yes.
He is. Well, we're going to give you a little break for a while, and then we're going to talk to the general and the colonel, and then we'll bring you on back, and we'll talk to all three of you at the same time.
Okay.
So-
Well, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much,
and
Mickey. It was a pleasure meeting you.
You'll be back.
Okay. All right.
So that was pretty good, huh?
Yeah, he's a very interesting man. It's kind of interesting to me that, and most people, I guess, don't know this, but you've heard the word snafu,
Right.
and you've heard the word fubar.
Right.
Well, those two words
Came from Vietnam.
came from Vietnam. Exactly
And
right.
why don't you tell the people at home what they mean?
Well, yeah, snafu means situation normal, all fucked up.
Right.
And fubar means fucked up beyond all recognition. And those two words actually entered the lexicon of our language. I mean, people say fubar or snafu. I hit a real snafu. And they really don't know where it came from. But that was right out of Vietnam. Fucked up beyond all recognition situations, all fucked up, which was the order of the day in Vietnam. Situation normal, all fucked up. When we talked about last week about how we used 50,000 rounds to kill each Vietnamese soldier, that's pretty startling statistic.
Yep. It sure is.
It's remarkable. And they were able to persevere after all of that. I mean, we dropped more ordnance on Vietnam, on that little country, that was dropped in all of World War II and all the Korean War put together.
That's unbelievable.
It's astounding.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah, and they persevered. I mean, they incredible people, and gracious people too.
Okay.
Very gracious people, and tough. Well, again, we thought we were fighting to contain communism, and they thought they were fighting for their independence.
Right. Well, we are very honored today to have as our guests Major General Bob Dickinson and Lieutenant Colonel Jerry Yanello, both of the U.S. Marines, and both are retired. How you doing, fellas?
We're doing great. Doing good, Frank. And that better be Colonel for Yanello.
What did I say?
You said Lieutenant Colonel. He's
Colonel.
a full bird. This guy's a full bird. Don't be giving him. He earned that rank. Believe me.
He did indeed. So before we start, Jerry, how do we figure out we're cousins?
Well, I'll tell you what. It's a quick. I got a quick story here. I one time put up a picture of my mom. She died when I was just a teenager, and her last name is Pace. So Frank and I were, buddies on Facebook because we met each other at a couple of tournaments. And he said, "Hey, I'm curious. Where does your mom? Where was she born?" And my cousin from New York, she's now the oldest. She said, "Well, she was born in Barrie, Jerry." And Frank goes, "My mom was born in Barrie. That's where my family's from." And sure enough, son of a gun, we are cousins.
How about that?
You're distant cousins, is that right?
Well,
Very
we're not neighbors.
That's true.
According to William Manchester, I read a book about MacArthur called American Caesar. And according to Manchester, three of the most influential guys in World War II, FDR, Churchill, and MacArthur were all distant cousins. They were all related, according to Manchester.
Well, what is that? What was that book? 6 Degrees.
6 degrees of separation. Exactly. Exactly. I want to ask you two guys, if you don't mind, and no particular order.
And we can do away with the colonel and the general, I hope.
Yeah, they told me Bob and Jerry. No worries.
Okay.
Bob first. Bob, what do you think about the all-volunteer army? I asked Derek's father, Mickey, before about his impression of the all-volunteer army. Do you think it's a good thing, a bad thing, pros, cons? How do you feel about it?
The all-volunteer Army is working superbly. I mean, for DOD, not just the Army, but for all services. I don't know if I would have been able to get into the military other than being drafted, because in today's joining the Department of Defense, you have to have a high school diploma. And the weapon systems they have to use, they are very technological. So you have to have a very good GCT and understanding of what's going on. And it's working very well. It started after McNamara's 100,000 after Vietnam. And ever since then, you got to remember, what you see the military doing today is done by volunteers. They put their hands up and they volunteer to go into harm's way to take care of our constitutional rights across America. And I would begin today without a heartbeat.
Well, that's good. I mean, that's great to hear. I mean, it's certainly reassuring for a civilian. Jerry, same question. How do you think?
I got to echo what the general said. These kids, these men and women now, who raise their right hand and, they swear to defend and support the Constitution of the United States. These are excellent. And we were listening prior to, us coming on to Mr. Harris. I was drafted in the 71, basically kind of like Frank. I was number 49 on the draft, so I went down and got my induction physical at the Homestead in Miami. But then right after that, they canceled the draft. So I continued to stay in college, and then went out and became an aviator. But I have to say that these men and women are superb because they're doing volunteering, and the money you don't volunteer to go into the military for something in your wallet. It's in here. That's why you go in the military nowadays.
Let me ask you guys.
Frank, we used to get excited when we got a 1% pay raise every year from our elected officials. Let's put this in perspective. You don't join the military to get rich.
Yeah, for sure. Let me ask you, what exactly are the Marines? Are they a branch of the Navy?
Oh.
Yeah, that's a tough one. You threw some grenades there, pal. That came out of his mouth, not mine.
You don't think I knew that? You don't think I knew that? What exactly are the Marines?
We are Department of the Navy, but we're the men's department.
You're the real Navy.
It's funny. I had the opportunity to shake hands with John Glenn in 1969. When I was in Campanam, the Bob Hope show came, and I was on the stage for like all of a minute and a half, but John Glenn was with them. And I shook hands with John Glenn and talk about money and joining the service for money. They gave me a show, ask him a question. You know what I asked John Glenn?
No.
I asked him, this was a 19-year-old kid talking to a iconic hero, John Glenn. And I said, let me ask you a question. When you went to the moon, did you get travel pay? Because at the time it was 12 cents a mile. And I said, that's a pretty good payday.
I'm going to tell you another story. I asked Buzz Aldrin the same thing. And Buzz said he put in for travel pay.
Did he really?
To the moon, and it was rejected.
Is that right? Both of you guys obviously are students of military history. I mean, you have to be. How far do you go back? Like, when I was born in Ireland, so I lived upstate New York, not too far upstate, about 50 miles from the city. And whenever my Irish relatives came over, I'd always take them to West Point. That was my first stop. Because number one, it was only about 20 miles from me. And just to give the idea, I mean, walking around West Point, it just pumps you up. It's like it's just remarkable. Every bench has honor, duty, country. And then you look at it, statues of Patton and MacArthur, and it just blows you away, But you're talking about the young men that are joining the service today, and going back there, at 40 or 50 years old. That's one of the things that astonishes me, how young the cadets look. Like when I was 19 or 20, I thought I was a man.
Whoops, sorry.
Are you looking to play a number or something? How did the Godfather? Somebody get whacked?
Somebody's gonna
The
get whacked.
Godfather music just came in. Did somebody get whacked?
I
Yep.
had my phone on, and I'm Italian.
Another one just died.
It was like
I almost stood up and saluted.
it was like Jaws. They say you don't have to worry about getting attacked by a shark because you'll always hear the music first. I thought I was hearing the music and somebody was going to get whacked. But I was amazed at how young, they are. But the military, and I was only in the military for 4 years, 1 year in Nam, and I was in the Air Force. And there's a comic I know used to do it. He was a Marine. You're always a Marine. I'm saying he is a Marine, even though he's not a Marine anymore. He's still a Marine. Mm-hmm. And he used to say, "Was anybody out there in the service?" And I'd raise my hand and say, "Yeah, what branch were you in the Air Force?" Was there anybody out there in the service? Because I was in the Air Force, but I have a reverence for Marines. I mean, I really do, and for ground pounders in general, because I saw what was going on over in Nam. And there's a great story I believe it's a true anecdote of Chesty Puller, who was the most decorated Marine in American history. And supposedly he was in Korea. And this is after the Chinese had crossed the Yalu, and they were completely surrounded, his battalion or his division or whatever it was. And he said, "Men, the Chinese have crossed the Yalu River. We're completely surrounded. There's Chinese in front of us. There's Chinese behind us. There's Chinese on both sides of us. Men, they can't escape us now." Which I do have a reverence for you guys, man. So
let me ask you guys, what motivated you guys to make a career of the military? When you were drafted, did you know at that time you were going to be career military men, or did it just happen to come upon you after 4 years were up, or 2 years were up, or whatever?
Well, Jerry said he was 49. I was 10. And I knew I had my next 4 years designed for me in the military. And the more you put into it, once you get the Eagle Globe and anchor tattooed to your heart, it sort of grows expeditionally every year. So when I had the opportunity, everybody came in as reservists. There's a point in time the Marine Corps would put us up into what was called an augmentation board. And we applied for augmentation to see if we could become regular officers. And then after that, serving with the men and the women wearing the cloth of the nation, it was just an honor. I look forward to going to work every day. Sometimes bad things happen, but you have to accept that because that's part of doing business. But for the most part, we could probably write a book about some of the dumbest, stupidest things we've ever seen throughout the globe. One day I watched a young Marine on shore guiding in a landing craft air cushion, LCAC, bringing a tank ashore, and the chief on the LCAC, who was in charge of the LCAC, watched this young Marine and kept following him. Eventually, he rode over the Marine on the beach. To the Marine's credit, the chief did not set it down. He kept it up on the air, kept going, and we ran out there, and it looked like a cartoon character. The air underneath this LCAC had pressed him into the sand. He had a very bad abrasion to the outside of his body, but he had no internal injuries, nothing broken, and he didn't want to do it again.
On that question there that you asked, cousin, like I said, I was going through aviation in college because I got the flying bug, and every dime I earned, I put the flight training.
And you were a helicopter pilot, correct?
What's that?
You were a helicopter pilot, correct?
That's correct, yes. And I had my commercial instrument license, and I was in junior college, like I said, when I got the draft notice. And I went to Eastern Airlines and National Airlines, which are gone now, and I had an interview with them, and they said, well, we got a lot of guys coming out of Vietnam with flight time, so we recommend you go in there and then come out, then we'll hire you on as a commercial pilot. Well, I got into the service. I did, a couple, ground tours. Aviation tours, and then I said, this is so much more fun, and actually to defend my country and become a Marine. Rather than go fly for National Airlines or something and get up and go play with all the stewardesses. Who'd want to do that? Let me be a Marine.
when you could have Bob to go out on the golf course with and play with Bob.
That's true. I mean, as you know, and you do too, Billy. You got lifelong friendships that you go.
I don't think it ever leaves you. Even as an Air Force vet, it never leaves you. I can't watch. When I was in the fire department in New York, FDNY for 20 years, and we'd go on parades, for Patty's Day or whatever. I can look down that parade and tell everybody who's been in the military and everybody who hasn't just by their feet, just by the way their feet are spaced when they salute. It never leaves you. They have to have that 45, and if you see a guy standing like parallel, he wasn't in the service. And I can't stand to this day a sloppy highball. Somebody who salutes and makes it sloppy. I can't stand it. It bothers me. It really does. I even look at the commanders and chiefs. I look at the presidents, and when they pop a highball, if they don't have it right, it bothers me. And I wasn't a career guy. You guys are. How many years did you have in the active duty, Bob?
I had 36 years.
Wow.
Enjoyed it. Like I said, probably 95% of them. The 5% are things you just don't want to talk about. But it was an honor to wear the cloth of the nation. And I got to tell you, this week we celebrated the 245th birthday of the United States Marine Corps. I asked you, Billy, what's the birthday of the Air Force?
I couldn't tell you. Sadly, I'm embarrassed. I can't tell you, Bob.
Yeah, that's the difference between the Marine Corps and our perspective in the other services is we're rich in history, and it's all about not letting the Marines that came before us or after us down. And everywhere across the globe, Marines would celebrate the birthday, and again this year they did the same thing. I can remember watching the Cape in Desert Shield, Desert Storm. And as we're out there at 10:00 in the morning, I'm watching the icing melt down onto the sand. Well, we celebrated.
Wow, and it's crazy. I can remember being out in the Gulf, and we were at General Quarters. It was a Marine Corps ball, but we're still at the General Quarters, and we still celebrated as much as we could.
That's. Let me ask you a question. How many years did you have in active duty, Jerry?
31.
31 and 36. That's remarkable. And on that note, I got to ask Jerry first, and then Bob, I'm going to come back to you. What was the best duty? Where were you happier when you were stationed? I mean, obviously you've been all over the globe, but you can't be 31 years in the Marine Corps and not been all over the bloody place. So where was your best duty?
Best duty. Wow, that is a tough one because I have had a lot of them.
A lot of good memories, I'm sure.
Good duties, and as the general said, a lot of duties you want to forget. Best duties, I guess, was whenever I was home with my family, whether that be, California or here in New River or Camp Lejeune.
Have you ever thought about a career in the diplomatic service after a very diplomatic answer? Bob, how about you? What was your best duty in 36 years?
I agree in part with Jerry. I cherish the moments I got to spend with my family.
Yeah.
But the best duty I had in the Marine Corps was when I was operating with Marines, specifically when we were forward deployed. They were focused, no nonsense. You didn't have to worry about them getting into trouble. They knew exactly what they were doing and never questioned when somebody came down with orders and what they were going to do. And again, remember, we're not talking about a $500 game or whatever. We're talking about they're putting their life on the line.
Yeah. So as both as commanding officers, Do you sort of agree with the adage that it's easier to keep your men out of trouble than it is to get them out of trouble once they're in it? I mean, by staying busy, like you were talking about being focused, when they're focused on a mission, obviously all that testosterone is focused, you know, when
Well, Billy, we make them bulletproof. And I think all the services do the same thing. They bring them in from across America. You send them to boot camp. You send them to their MOS producing school, their military occupational specialty, and then they drop to where they're going to operate in the forces. But throughout that transformation process from becoming a civilian to a military, we make them bulletproof. We're convincing them that they can walk through the valley of the shadow of death and come out at the other end unscathed. It really stuck in my craw when they took that same mentality and would get on a motorcycle and go out in town and kill themselves. I can't understand that.
Yeah. Because this idea of being indestructible when you're young, and obviously the Marines have to reinforce that. I mean, you have to feel that you're capable of doing whatever you have to do. It's just, I mean, order becomes a reflex. You get an order, you don't question the order. You just.
I used to scratch my head sometimes, but I would probably execute it. That's why I was able to stay for 36 years.
Well, my nephew was a Marine. I think he was in for 5 years or so, and now he's still doing private security. Who knows where? I hope he's going to get out of that business quickly, but he says I guess he's making a lot of money in private security, so he keeps going over. But I think I would like to have him home, and his mother would like to have him home. That's for sure.
We've got neighbors in our own community here that are doing the same thing. They've gotten out, but they're still being contractors over in the bad parts of the world.
I want to ask you: do you guys ever serve together?
I don't. We may have been at the Pentagon for a little while, but then I think Bob left to come down and take over as commanding general of Camp Lejeune. But I stayed up at the Pentagon for a while.
When we were across, we were the commanding officer at Marine Corps Station New River, and I had Lejeune.
Yeah. So, but as far as in the same outfit, no. But again, I've known the general for a long time. In fact, he graciously agreed to come retire me when I retired. I think in fact, he said to me, "I want to make sure that you're gone." So I'm
How did you guys become friends?
Actually, it was a mutual friend of ours. I went to his house and he said, "Hey, I want you to meet Bob Dickerson." We were both colonels. Of course, he was already a general select, and but anyway, we became fast friends ever since then, and now we live right around the block from each other.
Frank, I think alcohol was.
Well, that's a small fault in a good man, Bob. I think a little alcohol never hurt nobody who done in the proper amounts, just to induce slumber,
And where are you guys now? And where are you guys as we speak? Where are you sitting? In what state?
Owensboro, North Carolina, on the coast.
On the coast.
That's meandered through the Gulf of Mexico and Florida. Is now dumping torrential rains on North Carolina.
Yeah, we're just north of Marine Corps Base Camp Lejeune and Marine Corps Air Station New River, our old haunts.
And Billy, where were you in South Carolina?
I was in Charleston. Charleston at the time, I was in Charleston for 2 years. I volunteered worldwide, and the Air Force, in their wisdom, sent me to Charleston, South Carolina, which was, I think there was a sign entering Charleston. You are now entering Charleston, South Carolina, 200 years of history unmarred by progress.
And how'd you spend your spare time in Charleston?
Oh, I was meandering and carousing, But that was, listen, I was a recovering Catholic at 19 years old, and they were letting me out loose. And I said, one of the reasons I joined the service was to see the world, And I did volunteer to go to Vietnam. I volunteered to get out of Charleston because I wanted to see the world. And listen, again, we're talking to two career Marine officers. I mean, I was just a kid from the Bronx who wanted to see the world, and being in the Air Force, I really wasn't too worried about getting my head shot off, you know. But a buddy of mine who is a Marine, who will always be a Marine, won a Bronze Star over there, was nominated for a Silver. And I was talking, his name is Johnny Vinciguerra, right? The Italian kid from my neighborhood. And I had asked him, you know, what happened over there, and when he got his Purple Heart, his first Purple Heart, he got 2. And what happened was he was walking 5 abreast, spread out, I imagine, in the jungle, as you don't group yourself in the jungle because of snipers. And they were spread out. Well, the guy in the middle had stepped on a landmine. And, of course, he was history. And Johnny was on the outside, and he got blown against a tree. And he said, I looked down. He said, I couldn't breathe, Billy. So I sawed a hole in my chest from the shrapnel. And I said, Corpsman up. Corpsman up. He says, and then I looked down at my pants. He says, there was a pool of blood around my crotch. He says, and I unbuttoned my pants. He said, I looked at it. He said, Billy, my penis was hanging by a thread. And the corpsman came up, you know, the medic, and he started working on my chest because I couldn't breathe. And I said, never mind my chest. He says, if that falls off, let me die. But he's a Marine then, he's a Marine now, he'll always be a Marine. And I always ask him about the injury, and he says, Billy, for the Corps, for the glorious Corps, I do it all again.
Yeah.
It doesn't even...
Brother, you keep saying you're only in for 4 years. I got to correct you. Everybody does their part. And it doesn't matter whether you do it for 4 years or you do it for 40 years. Everybody has to do their part. And the military we have today is a direct result of you and everybody else that came before us and left their fingerprints on what happens in the military.
Well, General, I appreciate that. I really appreciate that coming from you. I really do. As a matter of fact, there was a movie made with Gene Hackman. And I think it was called Bat 21. I'm not positive, but I'm pretty sure it was. But when I saw that movie, I knew that I was in Vietnam, or on the Laotian border, I should say. We had the Jolly Green Giants. We had the helicopters. There were the rescue helicopters in Nam. And I knew I was there when they made that movie because it's the story of a colonel who gets shot down behind enemy lines. And we spent 2 days or 3 days trying to get to this guy. And what they had done was, in my Air Force base, they had put it over the loudspeaker, every attempt to get this colonel. I mean, he was surrounded by Viet Cong, and he was in, you know, enemy territory. And every time they'd go in, there was a load of gunfire or whatever. But for 3 days, they finally got him. And it was, the drama was like so intense because, you know, we were support troops. That's what pretty much what I was. You know, I was keep them flying was the motto, you know, keep them flying. You know, that was the deal. And we were everybody in the base was tense, you know, for this colonel that was shot down. Of course, everybody wanted to see him rescued. Well, you know, when he finally got rescued, I was a computer operator, Frank. I mean, I was a computer operator in an air-conditioned building, the only air-conditioned building in Vietnam. Do you know he came around and shook my hand and shook everybody's hand in support and said, you're all a part of it. And that made me feel, to this day, 50 years later, it still makes me with a warm glow.
Makes you misty.
It does. It does. There's 18 million vets in this country. That's pretty remarkable. That's 7% of the population. And most of the vets are from the Gulf War. Now, both of you guys were involved in the Gulf. Is that correct?
Right. Yeah.
And I always noticed that, you know, there's no such thing as a stupid general. There's no such thing as a stupid colonel. You don't get there by being, I mean, you study military history.
What were you?
I was a stupid staff sergeant. You can have them. You can be a stupid general, but you can be a stupid staff sergeant.
How'd you get the staff sergeant rank?
I kept my nose clean until I got out of the service. I kept my nose clean and I did my job. I was good at my job, you know. I mean, it was an 8-hour job, you know. I was good at it. And again, I was delighted to be overseas. I mean, I wanted to see the world. That was the whole thing with me. I wanted to, you know, I was a kid. I had never been on a plane until I was 18 years old. Yeah. I mean, that was just the way it was in the 50s. The first plane I was ever on was on my way to boot camp in Texas. Really, it was the first time I was ever on an aircraft.
Wow.
Yeah. But another influence on my wanting to stay in the military was my big brother. And Frank met him, and we were, remember, at the golf tournament. My big brother Ralph. He was a Marine in the 50s. And so that had a little bit of an influence also, too, for me.
Yeah, you want to follow in your brother's footsteps, I'm sure. Bob, is yours a military family as well, or?
My father was a Marine in World War II. In fact, after I got drafted, number 10, I didn't want to leave it up to the Department of Defense to figure out where I was going to go, so I went out and talked to recruiters. We had just landed on the moon in July of '69, and the Air Force said they're going to make me an astronaut. The Navy said they were going to put me on an attack submarine, and I go in the Arctic Circle and protect the United States. I'm not big about living underwater. The Army said they were going to make me an engineer, and I was going to build things and blow things up. I can't draw a straight line with a ruler and a pencil. And then there was a Marine gunnery sergeant in dress blues. He said, we're going to send you to Paris Island. We're going to teach you how to become a Marine. You're going to be the most highly trained Marine in the United States Marine Corps. We're going to send you to Vietnam, and you'll probably last 30 days.
Wow.
Well, I went home and I had one of my moments with my father where you pour your heart out, and he was on the other side of the paper in his chair listening. He said, I can hear you through the paper. Keep talking. I said, that's what Bruce told me. And from the other side of the paper, my father said, it's got to be something about a service that tells you the truth, and it sounds like only one of them. Now, I'm cleaning this up. He said, it sounds like only one of them told you the truth. So after that, I joined the Marine Corps. And then they lied to me. They gave me orders. I never made Vietnam. They canceled all 3 of them.
Well, you didn't get to 30 days before you were dead either, which was kind of a good thing. Maybe they lied in a good way. But that's remarkable how they would actually recruit you by saying you'll probably be dead in 30 days. That is. My experience when I went to the Air Force, joined the Air Force, they give you a test, before you come in to decide how they're going to spend the money to educate you. Like you take one's in mechanics, one's in electrical work, one's general knowledge, one's administrative. And I was like, 95s all the way across the board, except for mechanics. I think I got a 41 in mechanics,
So they put you in mechanics.
You would think. But they told me, you're qualified for anything. You're going to have all these jobs, and so the day of when I was already in, I was on basic, and now you pick your career jobs. They had about 80 jobs up there, and the guy said, "Well, anybody out there not a citizen? Wasn't born in this country?" And I raised my hand. He said, "Well, that eliminates these 40, security risk, And I said, all right, well, I got 40 left. This is still good, And anybody out there colorblind? And I said, well, and they eliminated another 35. They down to about 3 career choices I had left. And I didn't even know what 2 of them were, but one was forklift operator. And I said, well, I think you don't got to be a genius to do that. So I picked data processing machine operator. I didn't even know what it was. But yeah, the recruiters tell you a lot of stuff. They tell you a whole load of stuff.
That's why they're called recruiters. That's why college basketball and college football guys are called recruiters.
Yeah, I'm sure. You'll start, son. Don't worry about it. You got to, and we got a lot of scouts down here from the pros. You'll be number 1. Yeah,
yep.
It's.
Yep.
I got another question for you. I was kind of interested, and I'm interested in military history. But you guys, you've had to study tactics going back as far as. I guess Caesar, Hamilcar Barker. I mean, you guys go all the way back, right? I mean, and you study your opponent's tactics as well, like General Giap and whatever. How far do you go back? I mean, with military history, Bob, you first.
You go back as far as history as you possibly can. You attend a lot of service schools, and throughout the service schools you go to. They teach you about military history. They teach you about history itself. You don't want to repeat the same mistakes that people in history made. So they're very good about it. Fact is, if you look at World War II, what Rommel did in northern Africa, as I understand it, he studied in the United States, and his favorite military tactician and operational commander was Stonewall Jackson.
Wow.
Army. And if you look at the tactics of the Panzer Corps in Northern Africa in the early 40s, they say they just about mirror what Stonewall Jackson did during the Civil War.
That's an incredible story because basically what it is mechanized cavalry. I mean, tanks, right? I mean, that's pretty much it, right?
20 feet strong, and the other one you have to put fuel in.
Ironic, last week we had Stonewall Jackson on the show. Stephen Lang played him in Gods and Generals.
That's right. Yeah, he played Stonewall Jackson.
Yep.
That's right. Yeah, and he played
Pickett
in Gettysburg.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he was just acting. These guys are on the level.
Yes. Yes, for sure.
But that's astounding to me. So Rommel studied Stonewall Jackson's. I remember in the movie Patton when George C. Scott said, "Rommel, I read your goddamn book. I know you."
That's right, yeah. It's funny you say, how far you go back. Well, we had the opportunity last year, a couple years ago, to go to Greece and Turkey, and saw the Greeks and then the Turks shoot all the way back to Achilles. Just the things that they did, how it can relate to, simplistically what we can do today to the enemy. As far as boxing in or flanking movements. But the Trojans and the horse,
it all relates. It all relates. So you'll go back all the way. It doesn't. You read the Annals of Thucydides about Caesar's victories, and you'll read it all. And your enemy. I mean, what about General Giap? Like Giap? Am I pronouncing that right? From Vietnam. He was a brilliant tactician. No, I mean, here's a guy who was fighting the U.S. military. To a standstill.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's why you come up with branch plans. Everybody puts operational plans together. I said, but when you do that, the enemy doesn't get a vote until the day you execute your plan. And when you execute it, you better have some branch plans so you can adjust fire, because now the enemy has a vote.
Yeah, the enemy's got a say in what you're doing. It looks all good. Everything looks good on paper until it's put into actual operations.
Well, I give you guys so much credit. Anybody who served, my father served, my brother served, everybody who serves has done a massive service to this country over and above. And I thank you guys so much. And Billy,
I'm honored to be in your presence, fellas. No kidding. That's from the heart. I mean, 36 years Marine General and 34 years. 31. 31. 31 is a full bird colonel. Well, I'm honored. Absolutely honored.
So, Derek, you want to bring your dad back on? There you are. Mickey, how are you? Say hello to General Dickerson and Colonel Ianello.
Pop my highball there, Mickey. Pop my highball.
Nice to meet you.
So you guys know that Mickey was an intelligence officer in Vietnam.
No, that's an oxymoron.
I'll go on with that.
So, Billy, why don't you start off with a question for the two of them?
I got a question.
Yeah.
I guess it's for everybody. You guys can.
This is Derek, by the way.
Yeah, I'm off camera.
He's
so.
Mickey's offspring.
Where's the military going? Are the robots coming?
Oh, that's an interesting question. Are we getting so highly mechanized that we're going to be robotic?
I saw a raised eyebrow. That means that they can't talk about it.
The day you sanitize warfare, the day you do that, then that becomes your first instrument of policy, because you've taken the human element out of it. And human beings have to be able to influence the actions of what are going to happen on the battlefield. So, yes, there's going to be a lot more autonomic weapon systems that are out there, but I hope we never get to the point where it's completely automated, where the only thing we got is machines on the battlefield.
I'll give you my 2 cents on that. And they say, like, when we went to Afghanistan, we bombed the hell out of them and just bomb, bomb, bomb. But you know what? And I can probably ask Mr. Harris here, too. Mickey, I think.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, you can put all the bombs, you can put all the artillery, everything you want. But until you get a little green guy, Marine or Army or any trooper, to go down there into that hole, grab that son of a bitch by the stack and swivel, and gouge his eyes out. That's the only way you're going to win.
Hey, I agree with that 100%. You can't take the human element out of it.
That's right. Just like the General said, and just like Mickey said. Can't do it. I mean, I got to fly those boys and girls now in there and put them down right behind enemy lines and let them go do their thing. I mean, we can soften them up like crazy, just like we did with the battleships back in World War II, and artillery strikes and napalm and everything in Vietnam. But until you get somebody out there, that's the way you're going to win.
Wow. Bob, you were going to interject there? You were going to say something? I'm sorry.
I'm not as eloquent as Jerry when he gets the
when he grabs him by the throat and rips him.
Let me ask you all a question. And tactics today that we did in World War II or previous conflicts, people will get relieved. We try to eliminate fratricide, which is blue on blue. You don't want to engage American forces or coalition forces. You want to prevent collateral damage to what's happening on the countryside. That's why you don't see us going over there and taking out entire grid squares where you have populated areas and you have huge losses of civilian lives. We're becoming a lot more surgical, precise on how we employ the weapon systems to prevent blue on blue forces and collateral damage to the civilians.
Now, would that
make it better? It looks better because now we have another element we have to deal with, which is a lot more embedded with what's happening with the military, and they call that the CNN effect. It takes 13 nanoseconds for something to happen, and it's on CNN or a news agency.
That's remarkable. That's really remarkable. When you think about Vietnam, it was the first war that was actually televised and to turn the civilian population against the entire enterprise. But I'm going to ask you a controversial question. And not controversial for me, but I'd like your opinion on it. Because when you say smart, the kind of surgical attacks you have now, it's almost a smart bomb, right? We're talking about smart bombs. Is that an oxymoron, or is that really on the level? I mean, can you avoid collateral damage with a smart bomb? Obviously a smart bomb is not going to go down and say, this guy's a good guy, and stop.
Yeah, I'll give you a quick story and then I'll answer that. My son joined the Marine Corps after 9/11, and his first deployment, he's an aviator, he flies F&A 18 Hornets. His first Iraq, was on the telephone call with his mother, and his mother said, "You can't go. You're not going because that son of a bitch always comes home. You're going to stay and let your father go." Well, he went. He's gone 4 times. Back in Desert Shield, Desert Storm, with these precise weapons we have, they would probably have a 50-foot radius of impacting when you launch it downrange. Nowadays, with the smart weapons, you can probably pick out the pane of glass in a window you want that weapon to go through.
That's absolutely remarkable. Mind-boggling. And a perfect analogy, too. That's mind-boggling to me, a pane of glass. Wow. So what do you think about, this is controversial to this day still, the dropping of the atomic bomb to end World War II, right? I mean, MacArthur had an uncanny, supposedly, prescience for casualties. He estimated that an invasion of the mainland Japan would cost us 1 million casualties. And the atomic bomb, of course, ended the war. Now, if I was on a troop ship heading for Japan, I would have said, "You got it, you drop it. I mean, you better drop it." I mean, do you feel like anything controversial about that, or it's a weapon that you have and you can use it, and it's war, and that's it? Jello?
Hey, I'll tell you, you know, maybe Mickey's been watched that, or the general, you know, when you see your buddies, you know, get wiped out, you're
Yeah.
gonna go in with everything you got.
Mickey, you feel the same way, right? I mean,
It was controversial in the sense that I believed that they could have dropped it anywhere offshore, and the people would have seen the kind of power that we possessed at that time, and I think that would have ended the war.
yeah,
Let me put this in another perspective. Let's
Yeah.
go back to 9/11, what occurred.
Right.
You are President Bush, and your advisors walk into you and say, Mr. President, we think we have 4 airliners in the air that we have lost control of, and we think terrorists are in control. Would you like, or we need to take them out of the air, and they're full of civilians. What are you going to do? I mean, everybody in retrospect goes, yes, that was a viable option up front. But you really going to take 4 civilian airliners with up to 1,600 civilian passengers on board because somebody has some type of intel that thinks that terrorists are in charge and they're going to do a terrorist act?
it's a tough call. That's a tough call.
And I'm not deflecting the question about the atomic bomb. They did it in the best interest of the United States and saving lives at the time. Was it a moral weapon? That's an issue for other people to get into on how to do it. But I might not be around today. A lot of us might not be around today. And for our fathers or whoever fighting in the conflict at the time had tried to do an invasion of Japan.
Yeah, actually, some historians think that we might have saved a lot more lives than we cost with the atomic bomb because Japan itself was suffering from diphtheria and there was all kinds of diseases that were rampant. And of course, MacArthur, when they occupied it, they did a lot to clean that up, you know. And I know he made it a 5-year mandatory sentence, MacArthur, for any U.S. soldier caught smacking or hitting a Japanese civilian. 5 years mandatory.
You know, in every conflict we've been involved in, we've never taken a piece of terrain. We don't go to war to expand the shores of the United States. We go to help people. We try to put tyrants down and get them back in their box. But we never ask for another country or anything else. We give it. We go forth. We do the calling of the nation, and then we hopefully can come home.
Yeah. Well, you know, Mickey, when your experience in Nam, I mean, you had to ask yourself at some time or another while you were over there for a year, like, what was it all about? You just knew you were doing your duty, your country needed you, and that was it, right? I mean, did you question the morality of it, or, you know, I mean...
No.
No, I never did either.
No. They asked for us and we went.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you like to think that your superiors have more knowledge and make better choices, you know, which is why you're in the military to begin with, you know?
That's correct. And I think that's the feeling of a lot of guys during that time. We were in the selective service, of course, and those who were drafted and those who weren't. We felt it was our duty to our country to serve. And that's why we did what we were asked to do.
On another note with the 2 officers, Bob and did you guys feel like that? Were you both active duty when 9/11 happened? Did it affect you personally, and how, if it did? Charlie? I'm sorry.
No, not Charlie. Jerry.
Jerry, I'm sorry.
Your mind's going to mush.
I'm old, Frank. I'm old.
Yeah, you're getting older fast.
A lot of holes in his brain,
Jesus
you know?
Christ.
Sorry, Jerry. Yeah, you first. Did 9/11 affect you directly? Were you when you were in?
Yes. I'm going to answer that first while Jerry composes himself. Jerry was in the Pentagon.
Wow.
Back because I was at Quantico sitting on a board, but we were both stationed at the Pentagon at the time. And it was an eerie time in the history of the nation when that occurred. I can remember all the roads in Washington, D.C. were turned around so everybody could exit D.C. and get out as fast as they could because nobody knew what was going on. The next day, I went back up to headquarters Marine Corps to the Marine Corps Command Center at 0200 because nobody was sleeping. So I get up there, and the next thing I know, I'm in a meeting with the Secretary of the Navy and the Vice. Vernon Clark was CNO at the time. Jim Jones was coming out of the Marine Corps. All the 4 and 3 stars in D.C., 2 stars, and one stand up against the wall. And after about 2.5 hours, it became completely clear that we didn't have a clue what was going on. And the Secretary of the Navy said, this is what we're going to do. We're going to walk out of here, and we're going to tell the American public they're going to be fine. And we're going to find out who did this, and we will prosecute them to the ends of the earth and bring them to justice. And that was probably the best advice that could come out of that meeting as we're trying to grapple with what was going on. So at the same time, we're trying to help those that were affected from the aircraft going through the Twin Towers, the Pentagon, ordering through the ground in Pennsylvania. It was a surreal moment.
Yeah, I know that Billy was a retired New York City firefighter, and he spent a number of days amongst the first responders digging people out, and he has said that to this day he can't go back to the site and visit the museum because he lost too many friends, too many brothers, because the firefighters are a brotherhood much like the service, and he lost a lot of brothers there. And it's still emotional for him at this time.
Well, the fire department is more of a semi-military organization. You know, we're not as stringent or strict as you guys, but the brotherhood is the brotherhood. You know, it's
Sure.
anytime you're depending on somebody else to protect your life and back you up, it's
Emotional.
a special kind of bond.
Well, you got forces, you got emergency responders in the United States. They're the first responders. They do the home games.
Yeah.
The military does the away game.
That's
Yeah.
a perfect analogy.
Right.
Yep.
A perfect analogy.
Yeah, it was a rough day.
Yeah.
I was on the joint staff. I was over on the Navy side.
Now, this is the Joint Chiefs of Staffs? I'm sorry. Joint
Correct,
Chiefs of
yeah,
Staffs?
the
Wow.
Joint Chiefs of Staff. And I was over on the Navy side talking to a friend of mine who we went to the National War College together, Captain Robert Bowen. And, we watched the first one on TV and we thought, oh my God, what a horrible accident. And then the second one went in and we looked at each other and we said, boy.
It's no accident.
So as I got up to walk out, I got about 50 feet down the hall. It happened.
Yeah.
They
Wow.
couldn't find Bob at all. He was gone. And to this day, I couldn't go to the 9/11 museum either. I had to walk out. But yeah, it was a tough day, and yeah, that's all I can say.
Yeah, it was a time in American history where all Americans and America locked arms, came together to fight a common enemy, and we did that.
Well, that's absolutely true. I can tell you, I worked at the dig for a few days after 9/11. I didn't get up there till the 13th because I was down in Florida, but I drove up to work on the dig, and I even saw dowagers. I mean, wealthy dowagers swaddled in mink, handing out sandwiches at the site, and every firefighter, I mean, I was retired already, but as a retired FDNY, of course I was going to be at the site. A lot of guys were up there that were retired looking for their sons. Because a lot of, it's that kind of a job. Well, my dad did it, my dad loved it, and I want to be a firefighter. And a lot of guys were up there looking for their sons. It was a tough day. And we had a 9/11 show, I guess, on the anniversary of 9/11. And we had a couple of guys who were friends of mine who were first responders. And not only did they talk about the camaraderie that went on or how the day affected them, But they also talked about the iron workers, talking about all of America coming together. And believe me when I tell you, us firefighters, the EMS guys, we were useless without those iron workers. They were above and beyond. I mean, guys walked off their job. They came down there and worked 24, 36 hours straight. You know, it was just like Mickey said. It was all of America came together, rich and poor, left or right, Republican, Democrat. It didn't make any.
Well, hopefully we'll get to that day again.
I would love to see it. You know, I'd love to see it. Please, from your lips to God's ears, as
Yes.
they say.
Well, that's. I want to thank you guys again for your sacrifices and service to our country. This is a very special day for me. Veterans Day commemoration. I think we should do this every year because we're going to be around for a while. Well, you may not be.
Well, you said you're going to be around 20 years. You got a plan somehow. I don't know. You must have a direct line to himself.
With the life you've lived, you may not be. But
It's the old Joe Namath line. If I knew I was going to live this long, I would have took care of myself. Yeah, who knew?
But thank you all for making time to appear for us today. Jerry, watch him on the golf course. I know the way he likes to use his foot wedge occasionally. And Mickey, thank you for all being here. It was a great pleasure.
By the way, look what I got in the mail.
Hey! Oh my! Hey,
These guys, now, next time I see you, you better autograph it for me.
There won't be no military history in that, Jerry. I'll tell you that. There's no military history in that book.
and make sure the general buys his own copy. Don't give him one. Don't give him yours.
I'll read it after he
Gentlemen, it's been an honor for me, an absolute honor to be in front of all three of you.
It was a pleasure meeting you, sir, and thank you for your service. Billy, cousin, hoorah.
Hoorah is right. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you, guys.
Stay safe.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
All right.
Pleasure, guys.
So, Billy,
That was great, Frank.
it was really great. It was really terrific.
Really an honor. These, it's almost heroic. I mean, it's incredible.
It is
36
heroic.
years.
It is heroic.
36 years and dedicated to your country. That's
But
it.
you know, even your short term and Mickey's short term is just like you said. Everybody does their job, and like I think the general said, you guys are just as special as
Well, you know,
they are.
it never really does leave you. You know, I mean, if you have a military background, it never totally leaves you. I mean, you don't have the dedication that these gentlemen have, of course, but it never really leaves you. You know, there's a certain bearing that you. You know what's interesting, and I had to look this up because I knew I was going to be interviewing a general. But it seems like after every war, not every war, but I'd say most wars, it's the generals that are the heroes. Like if you look at our presidents, well, Washington, obviously after the Revolutionary War, he was the general and he became the president, the first president. Grant, after the Civil War. Eisenhower.
Well, Grant had a little help.
Yeah, and Eisenhower was an overwhelming, winner when he ran against Stevenson, World War II. But those are the three that come to mind.
Mm-hmm.
But I had no idea until I Googled it how many
To the mic.
generals actually became president. There was Andrew Jackson, there was William Henry Harrison, Zachary Taylor, Chester Arthur, Franklin Pierce, Andrew Johnson, Rutherford B. Hayes, James Garfield, Benjamin Harrison. It's kind of remarkable that many generals became.
And then generals became presidents of colleges in the 40s, 50s, or after World War II. A lot of generals, like General Bruce, became president of the University of Houston. I know that because my brother's name was Bruce, and he was named after General Bruce. And my second brother, Douglas, was named after Douglas MacArthur because my father served under both of them in World War II at Leyte Gulf.
At the Gulf of Leyte, yeah. That was
Yep.
That was MacArthur. MacArthur, my limited study of military history, MacArthur, of course, saved countless lives. He was the first guy to come up with triamphibious attacks. And the island skipping in the Pacific. just letting the Japanese hang out, and they were fortified an island. He said, well, let's just skip the island. Why take that island? We're on our way to Japan. So he saved so many lives, and of course in Incheon in Korea, which was his master stroke. But after that, his ego might have just went a little bit above board.
Then came Korea.
Yeah, in Korea, after Incheon, he sort of lost it. I mean, he was Matthew Ridgway is the real hero of Korea, and probably, I mean, you see movies about Patton, you see movies about MacArthur, and movies about Eisenhower. And to me, Eisenhower, to this day, I still think he was one of our greatest presidents in my lifetime, anyway. But they don't talk about Ridgway. And Matthew Ridgway was, I think that'd be the basis for a good book or a good movie.
Right.
Because he was remarkable. They say he was a knight in the 20th century. He was just totally iron tits, they used to call him, because he always had 2 grenades hanging from his lapels. That was his nickname, Old Iron Tits.
Wow.
But he went into Korea, and had it not been for Matthew Ridgway, they might have had to use an atomic bomb on China.
Wow. So speaking of atomic bombs, my pick last week was a bomb.
Hey, listen, Guru, into every life a little rain must fall.
But your pick was fantastic.
Well, yeah, but big deal. You're still 5-2.
Yes,
now,
well, that's true.
And I'm 5-4.
But wait.
5-4.
No.
I was 500 last week.
Okay,
and
all right.
I broke into the winning column.
Yes,
again.
you are correct. You are correct.
Oh.
But that Tua pick was a good pick in Miami. That's the quarterback for Miami that you picked.
Yeah, he had a big day. I didn't think they were going to win. The line just looked funny. I mean, look. I look at those 4 losses, and 2 of them I could have won. Then I look at one of the winners, and that one should have been a loss. So it's like, it's you make the ball round for a reason.
Well, and now I'm marching inexorably toward 500. So who's your pick this week?
All right, here's my pick. Another dog. So far, it's been 9 underdogs. You know what? I always take the points. I don't believe in betting the chalk. If you bet the chalk, you're doomed to lose. And not that you're not doomed to lose if you're picking the dogs, because I'm 5-4 this week. And Frank is going to give a scoff when I say this. The Saints are 9.5 points over the 49ers, over San Francisco. I think that's an overlay. I think the 49ers shouldn't be getting 9.5 points from anybody. Of course, New Orleans last week looked like guns a-blazing the way they humiliated Tampa. And San Francisco got humiliated. That 9.5 points is too much. I like the dog.
You know that Garoppolo's out, right? You know they're playing with their third string quarterback.
9.5 points.
Okay.
I like the points.
Okay, Derek, give me my game.
Ladies and gentlemen, the game for Frank is
the Guru.
The Eagles against the Giants.
Where's it playing?
Eagles at -3.5. Giants at home.
Eagles at -3.5.
The Guru, I can hear this mechanism working in the brain.
Eagles.
Send it in, fellas.
Eagles.
Put the rent on this one. The rent.
Eagles. He
says Eagles.
Eagles will dare this week. Along with our military day theme, Eagles dare.
Eagles soar and dare. So you like the Eagles over the Jets?
I do like the Eagles.
3.5, you're late.
Yep.
I'm taking the 9.5, and I'm taking the dog. I'm going to take the Niners. And the fact that the quarterback is out, I know all about it, but so do the bookies. That line's up there for a reason.
That's true. With that, let's get off the air.
All right, my brother. It's always good seeing you. Thanks very much for looking in to a Mook, a Mick, and a Mike.
Thank you, Derek. And by the way, one last push for If These Lips Could Talk, available at Amazon or whatever you can. If you get it, please post a 5-star review. If you already have, that's good too.
And if you don't like the book, keep it to yourself. Nobody likes a blabbermouth.
No, go screw yourself. If you don't like it, go screw yourself.
Don't write the review. Nobody likes a blabbermouth.
We're not going to rewrite it, so it doesn't make any difference what you think if you don't like it.
I don't think the book is great, so I don't think anybody's not going to like it.
Thank you, Derek Harris. Thank you, Mickey Harris. Thank you, Bob and Jerry.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody who served.
And thanks for your service.
Yep.
And happy Veterans Day to everybody.
All right. Goodbye, everybody.
Next week's guest, American actor from the hit sitcom Parks and Recreation, Jim O'Heir.
We'll see you next week.